3 years ago, we turned our lives upside down by digging the floor out in our kitchen to install an underfloor heating system as part of a kitchen renovation. Now, little did we know at the time just how much that would change our lives. More on that later. But with one room still left to do, I was keen to complete the final piece of the jigsaw. The problem is though, I can't get hold of my builders. I don't think they're interested. So I've decided to do it myself. Can I physically do this on my own? Can I remember enough about what the guys did in the kitchen to take this on and succeed? Well, there's only one way to find out. Retrofitting underfloor heating is not for the faint-hearted, but I thought that by sharing with you weekly updates so you can live with me through the blood, sweat, tears and costings of this project, you'll be well armed for taking on a challenge like this yourself. And there are some hidden surprises along the way. Where does that lead? So let's have a quick chat about why I decided to do this and also cost, because these 2 points are pretty interrelated. And I'm sitting here today on this big slab of a kitchen floor because that is very important. Fitting underfloor heating in an old property is a challenge. We're still living here and I wanted to minimise disruption, but I know from our kitchen that it's worth the pain. Sam on my Discord channel told me the kitchen underfloor heating would radically alter the entire thermal footprint of the house. But what about all that Rockwell I put in the ceiling to dull sound upstairs? Doesn't matter, he said, and he wasn't wrong. That cold fridge we used to walk on was transformed into a super massive storage heater, and that 30 degrees of heat remarkably radiates around the entire house. We haven't even fired up the wood burner once since it was switched on. But with my builders not around and a quote for just under 9,000 quid from a couple of guys just to remove the soil and build a little wall, that was money I couldn't afford to spend, so I thought I'd do the whole thing myself and see how much money I could save. But to do this on my own, choosing the right kit was going to be critical. Still in the process of pulling together everything I'm going to need for this job, and I don't know whether I'm going to need a motorised wheelbarrow, so I'm off to the local hire centre now to have a look at them and try and work it out. Could that be overkill? Little did I know how important this decision was going to be. Based on what I can remember from the kitchen works, I got ordering micro digger and muck truck, which from now on we're going to call the magic wheelbarrow. 5 sheets of 12mm OSB and 26 metres of 3x2 CLS, the cheapest timber I could find. Very important this. I thought about some sort of plastic sheeting, but boarding like this is the only way to properly ensure that all that dust remains in your building site, not in your house. 2 tonnes of Type 1 MOT and 2 tonnes of builder's sand. Pack of wall ties, 5 bags of cement, possibly over-ordered there, 1 bag of hydrated lime and 20 concrete blocks. With this lot I was so far just over 1,000 quid down. Last job, remove the tarp that had been protecting the kitchen waste pipes from the sun and pack the foundations that I dug a couple of years back with some railway sleepers and a couple of paving slabs borrowed from the path to prepare for what was to come. I say last job, there was one final very important step. Right, one of my many issues on this job is how to get the rubble, assuming I'm getting rid of it rather than dumping it on the lawn, how to get it up the garden so that gravel can pick it up. The lawn is actually looking quite nice these days, so I don't want to mess it up too much. So what I've got is this ground protection mat, and the plan is, as best as possible, to preserve the lawn when my wheelbarrows are going up and down it. I'll post a link to this stuff in the description below the video. It's made from recycled rubber and it's incredibly thick. And the best thing is the pieces link together, so once they're down, you're not going to have a problem with them coming apart. A big thanks to the Start Safety team for loaning me this matting. They're very supportive of my channel, and by purchasing this and other stuff through my link, you also help to keep the lights on here, as I make a small commission on each sale. And for the first 2 days, I decided to enlist a little help. Right, you are going to see this gentleman on the screen today. He's a friend of mine who's come over to help me. He runs a property maintenance company, and Tadas is here today to give me a bit of sanity, second pair of eyes, second brain, as we start making things up as we go along to get this window out. First job, the old leaky single glazed window had to go. Just want to show you this. This has been the security. You know, you go on holiday, you leave the place, you lock up, you think nobody can get in. Check this out. I mean, come on. Tell us, how do they make windows in Lithuania? Better than that. With that out, we could power on with removing the rest of the swept bow window. I ground a line in the render to stop too much fracturing away during the demolition, and then it was out with the sill. The builders clearly made it up as they were going along when they built this in the 70s. Chipboard, water coming in under the bay. A little bit of ply. Next up, it was out with the carpet. A big relief because we'd had this transition between the rooms for the last couple of years. Time to bring out the big guns, and I'm hoping, praying that this works because my builders didn't have their own concrete breaker and they slightly knackered it. A deeper groove this time with my 9-inch angle grinder, roughly in the position where we thought the inner leaf of bricks was going to end. I make the point in a lot of my videos, if you want to chisel, don't rely on an 18-volt SDS. 240 volts is so much more powerful, and even more powerful than that is the concrete breaker. Now, this breaker was, as I said, on its last legs, but you can see even here it's raw power for jobs like this. And in no time at all, we had enough of the wall demolished to bring on the next toy. It was time for the micro digger, and if you've never driven one of these into your house before, what have you been doing? The floor of the room had these red clay tiles which I loosened with the concrete breaker. Crazy to think this was the only barrier between us and the soil beneath. Now it was a digger's turn to upstage the concrete breaker. Once, that is, I had reminded myself how to operate it. We experimented with trying to load the magic wheelbarrow directly from the digger, but then decided it was actually much quicker to do it by hand. I tried out the ground protection mat earlier with my humble wheelbarrow, but now it really came into its own, taking the weight of the muck truck with ease. I think it's been a pretty good first day. Site is looking beautifully clean. God, I've got conscientious builders here, haven't I? Who wonder who these guys are? Windows on, windows gone, not on. It's definitely not on. Favourite gadget in the world, and we had made a bit of a discovery. Got walls there which I sort of knew about because at some point previous owners had put a steel in the roof. But more mysterious is we've got walls going down there. But as the day went on, a staircase began to appear out of the rubble. What was it doing there, and how was this going to impact or affect my underfloor heating project? Oh, day two. Do you know what? Last night I might have had a couple of beers because I was quite happy with how everything went yesterday, and I'm waking up feeling really tired and a bit despondent today. I don't know why. I suppose these projects, the enormity of them. Look at my digger and the wheelbarrow parked in my living room. Had to buy a new concrete breaker because the old one has died. 180 quid. Seems like a good deal. I could have bought a breaker tool for the digger. Maybe it was an error not doing that. We'll find out in a bit. I just thought it'd be quite nice to have a breaker left over when we're finished that I can use for other jobs, whereas the concrete breaker on the digger would be 50 quid for the day to hire. I don't know. We'll see how we get on. Perhaps the biggest issue I've got today is what to do with the heads of staircase. That wall's got to come out down to the level that we need for the underfloor heating. And then this suddenly appeared last night, which is a staircase, I'm guessing within the house itself, that led down tiny little steps, building regs wouldn't allow that anymore, into my very unremarkable cellar. And sadly, we can't keep it because it's right in the middle of the thoroughfare, the only way through the house upstairs. I suspect the previous owners blocked it off when they created this staircase outside. So we just don't need an internal access which is slap bang in the middle of a room. It would have been somewhere here where that new brickwork is. And if I was really bothered about regaining access from inside, I'd do it through this cupboard by ripping up this floor and putting a staircase in. The digger was £75 per day plus 25 quid delivery and pickup. So to keep costs down, I was keen to only have it for 2 days. So day 2 was all about finishing off the main excavation of the room. I've never known anything like it. But I was very pleased I bought the new concrete breaker because I wouldn't have got the digger into these tight corners. And I would have been a bit stuck now the digger had gone back. Now you look down and you wonder how you can sort of set a level in here, and I'll show you what I've done. In the kitchen, my builders had a laser level with a receiver. I couldn't really justify buying one of these, so I thought I'd make my own. So I put my laser level on the wall, I marked a finished ground level on the opposite wall, and I've measured down from this mark to the final level I want to excavate to. And I've marked that on this bit of wood. A DIY receiver that I can position all round the room. How do I set the level though? 60mm of subfloor, which the underfloor heating pipes will run in. There's 100mm of PIR below that, 100mm of concrete below that, and about 50mm of Type 1 MOT. That gives me a total amount that needs to be excavated of 310mm. And there is my 310. If I've excavated a little bit too much, it just means we need more Type 1 MOT. And this is the room next door that I have insulated and got underfloor heating working in. And what's quite good about this is you can see the whole process. There's my 60mm of chem floor, which has the pipes running in it. Here's my little expansion strip. Here's my 100mm of PIR beneath. And then we've got the concrete slab, which, because my builders did this by hand, I don't think this is as deep as it should be. In the kitchen it's 100mm, but I reckon in here that's probably about 60, 70. Day 3 and I was flying solo now, without the digger or Tadas's help. But one thing I wasn't saying goodbye to just yet was the magic wheelbarrow. It's mid-afternoon on day 3 and I'm pretty much done with the excavation. I'm pretty chuffed about that. So here we go. Excavated right out into the bay, which means great, which means I can take my underfloor heating all the way through to minimise any cold spots. And I was a bit low, but I'm not now really, because the remaining rubble from the wall I've distributed around the floor. Cellar wall is jutting out to the room a bit, but I don't really want to remove too much of that. As it is, I've probably removed a little bit too much of the wall there, but not in a way that's going to destabilise anything. And the one tool I literally could not have managed without is the muck truck. Why do I say that? Well, for a start, it takes about 3 wheelbarrows of waste. There is absolutely no way I could have carted this lot all the way up here, and I resolved when I did the roof did the chimney demolition, that you might watch that video, link on the screen now, that I was going to try and get some sort of mechanised wheelbarrow for the next job, which is why I hired this. And you don't really appreciate just how essential this was until you see this. This is the rubble that's come from this room, and yes, it goes on and on and on and on and on. There is absolutely no way I could have carted this up the drive in my manual wheelbarrow. And what's more, with this fantastic matting, all those trips up the lawn have caused no damage to it whatsoever. Day 4, got some nice weather today, and it's back on the muck truck because we've got 2 tons or thereabouts of Type 1 MOT to put in there. Don't know yet until I start filling it up. See how much we need. Typically made from crushed limestone, granite or concrete, 40mm down to dust, it's designed for maximum compaction strength and load bearing capacity, making it really good sub base for jobs like this. General plan was to distribute it around the room and then rake it around, trying to eye it in level. It's crazy, you excavate all this earth and then start paying good money to fill it back in again. Still, 1 3/4 tons of Type 1 MOT later, it was time for the whacker plate, £20 hire for the day to compact down the MOT. The grab lorry I'd booked to remove all that rubble couldn't fit in the drive, so with the magic wheelbarrow going back to the hire shop tomorrow, I decided to push on with transporting the building sand blinding layer down to the house. And you can see in this shot just how well the whacker plate has compacted that Type 1 MOT. Day 5 and the blinding layer was down, levelled and whacker plated flat, only for me to gradually churn it up over the next week or so with my footprints. I did manage to eye it in quite level though. And most importantly, these railway sleepers, not good railway sleepers are they, but fake railway sleepers, have preserved the soil pipe for the kitchen waste really well. So I can now take them up and start thinking about the wall. With much sadness, the magic wheelbarrow went back to the hire shop. A smaller 6-wheel grab lorry was sent over and this time got through the drive entrance and removed all that rubble. I never get tired of watching these things at work. Over 2.5 skips, but less than the price of one. And amazingly, my driveway was back to normal. The room had been open to the elements all week and I decided it was time to erect some temporary boarding to make it weather tight. This also allowed me to open up the inside, no more having to go outside to go to bed each night. Day 6 and Charlie White is about to start his bricklaying apprenticeship. The plan? To turn the bay from this to this. Problem I've got is the builders poured the foundations for this new window when they were doing the kitchen and forgot to level it, meaning it slopes dramatically from left to right. I've decided to cut the concrete blocks into the slope rather than lay a really thick mortar line beneath the deepest drop. Seasoned brickies out there, let me know what you'd have done in this situation. Anyway, it didn't take me long to cut the blocks and I figured it would make it much easier for me to bed them down given my inexperienced bricklaying. First job, true up or pin back the kitchen waste pipe so it didn't stray into the inner course of bricks. Next up, new toy from the hire centre, cement mixer, £66 for a week. This is a below ground mix and I've decided I'm going to go 1:1 to 4. So 4 sand, 1 cement, 1 lime. But like the magic wheelbarrow, it's such a joy having a cement mixer because normally I mix in a wheelbarrow and I thought I'd just mix up a really small quantity until I was comfortable with what I was doing. The builders had left their string lines in the garden and I thought I'd repurpose them using this block set I bought on Amazon. The first day bricklaying was, if I'm honest, full of faffing, trying to work out the optimum placement of the exterior brick course and generally getting to grips with how to operate the string lines. I'm going to talk about my experience bricklaying in a bit more detail in the next video, but suffice to say, after a few false starts, by the end of the day I had 2 courses of concrete blocks in place. Day 6 ended with some prep work for the lintel that will be supporting the wall directly above the soil pipe, and I cleaned up some hard engineering style bricks salvaged from the wall under the window, which will be forming part of the wall that sits below ground level. Day 7 and I was finally getting to grips with how to properly use that string line and generally feeling a bit more confident / competent with my bricklaying. And it was also time to remove that matting, and in a few days time the grass will have completely returned to normal. Day 8, the sun is shining, what can I possibly complain about? And I feel like I'm in a pretty good place at the moment. I'm getting the knack of bricklaying, and in terms of strategy, these are the really hard engineering style bricks going below ground that I told you about a minute ago. And now we're going above ground. These are the bricks that I took out the chimney when I demolished it. You might have seen that video. And the plan is to put a couple of layers of these on, and then we go to a damp proof course here, which is because that will be exactly 150mm above ground. In terms of schedule, I'm sort of in control at the moment because the first big deadline comes on Thursday when we're having the first concrete pour. So this is pretty much the level for the concrete pour. So everything I'm doing above that is ahead of schedule basically. So I'm going to get these couple of courses of bricks in and then start editing this video, which hopefully you'll see by the end of this week. I had this tie-in system for extension walls to fix in place. And then the second course of bricks were laid, and then the messiest job so far, trimming back the wall so it was flush with the internal brick course. So the concrete screening company have been around this morning and they've double checked using their proper laser level my levels. And as you see, 100 in the corner, that's what I was aiming for. 1.15mm out there. Most we're out is 25mm. Which is all fine because by doing a survey pre-pour, they'll be able to deliver the precise quantity I need. All that remained was to cut the damp-proof membrane, which handily I had a roll of left over from the kitchen renovation. And I was ready for the big pour, and I'll explain in the next video why I'm not lapping this layer of membrane up the walls. So that's it, we finally got to the stage of the big pour, which you'll see in the next video. 9 days of progress, pretty good I think, by considering I've done this all single-handed, apart from Tadas's help at the start. I should point out, which I didn't mention in the video, that I knew that roof section there would be self-supporting, given I've demolished one on the other side of the house and it's got big steel trusses inside it. Also, I had a structural engineer to tell me that I was absolutely fine removing the wall at the bottom, and the foundations that we poured a couple of years ago and the wall that I'm building are all covered by building regs. It was dormant until recently, and that application is now up and running again. Any other questions you've got and general thoughts on what I've done, please leave them in the comment section below, and please also be kind, because as you know, I'm out of my comfort zone with this job and I'm very much making it up as I go along. Details of everything I've spoken about today will be in the description below the video, which of course, as usual, you can access by clicking on these links. And if you're new to my channel, it would mean so much to me to have you subscribe. You can do that by clicking on the link here, and don't forget to click the bell notification icon so you get notified of all my future uploads. Please stay tuned for the next video and lots of other exciting stuff coming up soon.